Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our watch club for Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 3. There is nothing of greater importance to secure the future of this empire. Welcome to Watch Club. My name is CTO831, but you can call me Hugs. And this is our Watch Club for Star Wars The Bad Batch, Season 3, Episodes 1 to 3. If you're joining us for the first time, well, this is Watch Club, our weekly review series, kind of like a book club, but way better. Keep in mind, we will be going into full spoilers for this series and Star Wars in general, so if you haven't watched these episodes yet, be sure to do so, and then come right back in less than 12 parsecs. Now, before we rescue an inconvenient but lovable new pet, let me introduce you to our experimental crew of ragtag troopers. I'm so excited to get to say this again. First up, he's taller than a Jawa, smaller than Jabba, and as entertaining as Jar Jar. He's CT1231, also known as Edit.
Yo, what's going on?
Not much, man. I'm excited. I'm stoked to get into this this new season, this final season. But listen, it can't just be you and me. You know what I mean? I think we could have a good side mission episode together, but we're going to need more of our crew. So right alongside you, we are so glad to have a true friend and war hero joining us, and her name is CT0118, but you can call her Brushstroke.
AKA Omegan.
Omegan. If you've ever heard any of our spoiler-free, for instance, for this series, you did a wonderful Omega impression. And we also
I'd have to say Justin also did a great crosshair. I need everyone to know that.
I think,
Thank you.
not just because of his height, I think he would be the crosshair of our group. If we were, you know what I mean?
Maybe.
But no, I think you also did a great job at fighting the urge to do an Omega impression during our interview with Michelle Ang.
I had to have so much self-control.
Yeah. But, just like the Bad Batch, we are without one of our brothers today. But don't worry, he didn't fall to his doom in a sacrificial moment of heroism. No, instead, CT1006, our friend Joints, will be joining us in future episodes of this Watch Club once we get to episode 8. So that'll be a lot of fun to get him back on the program. I can't wait to hear his first ahoy hoy. But friends, family, it's so good to be back here for this show. For both of you, we have released our spoiler-free thoughts already on 8 of these episodes. But for both of you, again, continuing to be spoiler-free for anything past episode 3. How are you both feeling about the season so far?
Oh my God, it's incredible. It's exactly what I wanted from the kickoff to this season. I miss Tech. I hope something happens with Tech here and we get an explanation at least. But in these 3 episodes, the blossoming relationship between Crosshair and Omega is my favorite part. And I'm so excited to see where that goes as well.
So good.
Mm-hmm. I think these first 3 episodes kind of set a standard of what to anticipate for the rest of the season. Confidence, structure, intention. I think it's all there in these first 3 episodes. And, when we talked about it in the spoiler-free, we mentioned those things in relation to the 8 episodes that we watched. But I do think that these first 3 episodes, even the fact that they released them all together, it flows really, really well. And it's such a great way to kind of kick things off for this final season.
Yeah, I think these first 3 episodes, to me, I mean, and again, this might be recency bias, but I do think this is kind of my favorite of the sort of the premieres for this show. And, of course, season 1 was the introduction, so, take it at what you will. Season 2 was the return, but I feel like this, and like we said in our spoiler free, there's such a trajectory that they're going on that they were able to kind of keep these so tight together. And so, yeah, I'm loving it so far.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully we get a perfect rounding of the entire 3 seasons. I think it was a really great idea for them. Now just hearing you explain the first episodes of each season that way, the beginning was telling us the story of the Bad Batch. The middle was the return of the Bad Batch and what they were going to do without a member. And this one is bringing them back together, understanding where they came from and what they want to do and what their journey means, which I think is cool.
I couldn't have said it better myself. But this Watch Club will be a little different than our usual episodes, given that, again, as we mentioned, we've seen 8 of them. So we'd figure that it would only be right to wait to join everyone else in the sort of the week-to-week fun, after that episode comes out. So we've got another episode of this that's going to be an episode 4 to 7 that'll drop when episode 7 drops. And then we'll be moving to our traditional weekly Watch Clubs with episode 8. So yeah, let's kind of get into this. We're going to kind of do a brief synopsis, and then we're going to just talk about our favorite moments from each episode from 1 to 3. Again, we will be very conscious to be spoiler free for anything past episode 3. And if there is any sort of theorizing being done, forewarning, none of it is going to be influenced by what we've seen beyond episode 3. So if there's something that we're kind of thinking of, the answer hasn't been given to us, at least by that 8th episode. So before we're imprisoned in a lab, helping our half-clone sister with experiments against our will, let's get to this first episode titled Confined, directed by Saul Ruiz. So we started with a recap of season 2 that included Tech falling, and I promise it didn't make me cry. But Megan, I remember I paused it right after, and I said to you, watching that recap, that it was like, I have no idea how, if you were to take this recap and show it to someone, obviously you wouldn't show it to someone who hasn't seen the show, but if you were to show it to someone who might not necessarily be as into Star Wars animation, I just have no idea how someone would look at it and think of it as like, oh, it's just a kid's show, because the recap alone, it was intense.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It showed off moments in season 2 that were so much more than animation.
Yeah.
Like really showing off that animation is a medium, and it's a way to portray incredible stories that don't have to be aimed at children.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that it was just like that, one of those quick realizations where I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so good. This final season starts off with a look at Omega and Crosshair confined in Hemlock's lab facility on Tantiss, going through the motions of everyday imprisonment. We discover that Hemlock and Emery are in search of a very specific blood sample, and that Nala Se is protecting Omega by destroying her blood sample every single time it's taken. We see Omega continue to hold out hope over an extended amount of time as she grows a little older and takes on yet another new hairstyle. We watch as she continually tries to convince Crosshair that they will escape. And we also see her make a new doggo friend in Batcher that she eventually frees but is immediately punished for her actions. I think immediately for me, what really sort of stood out, again, we kind of talked about this in terms of visuals, but that opening, starting in the rain, the thunderstorm, it hits so impressively. And it's funny because like they've done this before, like in I think it was season 2, or kind of when we were sort of being introduced to Tantiss around that time, where I was just like, oh my gosh, look how phenomenal the dynamic lighting in this forest looks. And so I just think this team of animators is so incredibly talented, and I like how it kind of plays out sort of like a monster movie, and it sort of shows you immediately the tone that we're setting for this episode. But what I think is the best aspect about this first section is that we are kind of getting to see that, they sort of cut away from the attack on those soldiers, and we see that the real monster is Hemlock, and how he just tells those guys just like, you know what I mean? Yeah, like just don't worry about it. Like give up on them.
They're not worth it.
No, they're not worth it. And so it's just like, it's cool, sort of that juxtaposition of, there's actual creatures attacking them, but the true monster is the one making that call that ends up securing their fate.
Yeah, it's the Frankenstein thing. He's making all of these monsters, and even though they're the monsters, he's the real monster, right? But I did think it was interesting to open up with a crashed ship. It obviously comes into play in the third episode, but I wondered if we were going to find out a little bit more about what exactly happened to that ship, or what its purpose was, or anything other than just being sort of victim to this monster or creature that lurks in Sector 4 apparently. So yeah, it was an interesting way to kind of kick things off.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so great that Disney Plus released all 3 episodes at one time, because they did follow this sort of like arc. To have that play through, you get hints of things in this first episode that feel unfinished, but then by the end of the third episode, it's all sort of been resolved, right?
Exactly.
So it's kind of fun to be introduced to this crazy planet of Tantiss that we've seen before, but we've really only seen Hemlock and his labs and stuff. We haven't seen the terrain. So it gives another dark level to this show, that whatever lies behind the trees and in that forest, Hemlock's like, meh, they're dead now, so whatever.
Yeah. Megan, was there a moment that you wanted to kind of chime in and highlight that maybe stood out for you in this episode?
Well, I did. One of the things I wrote down when we very first watched this episode, because I've now seen it quite a few times, I'm so intrigued by Emery. There's something about knowing a clone who has no attachment to other clones that I'm very intrigued by, because that's the whole MO of the clones, is like, we're brothers, we stick together no matter what. Aside from following orders, we are brothers and we'll do anything to protect clones. That's why you never see a clone actually shoot to kill another clone. It's always a stun blast. So it's very interesting to see Emery like be strictly science. And she gives a very quick description as to why she wasn't on Camino with Omega. And I just kind of want to know a little bit more about her history. I don't think we'll get that. But if she continues as a character in the Star Wars universe, I want to know a little bit about her.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because these 3 episodes kind of really highlight not just Omega, but also, Hunter and Wrecker and their ability to sort of win people over and to kind of bring them to their side. And I think we definitely do see that with Emery throughout these 3 episodes. So I think it's really interesting that, you mentioned, she's a clone that doesn't have any connections, but I think she's going to be connected. I think there's going to be something that maybe pushes her over the line.
To an extent, I still feel like she's dedicated enough to science that she doesn't feel totally attached.
I think we're seeing glimpses, though, of compassion and empathy, especially in this episode when she gives back her little
straw lula.
Yeah, a straw lula that she was making as a form of compassion, as a form of empathy. So I think in a lot of ways we're seeing glimpses of that. And you would see it, I believe, in episode 3 as well, where she's like, are you okay? Are you feeling okay? To the point of what you're saying, like, I think we're slowly unraveling her. And maybe it's going to come to a point of push and pull where she's going to make a decision that's going to be for the better. And it might be at her sacrifice, in all honesty. I think that she's probably going to not live to see the end of this season.
Ooh, interesting.
Oh my God.
We got a death prediction, we're only 17 minutes in. I also, Lula, the Hey Lula is just incredibly adorable, but I also want to highlight her little lunchbox that Omega carries around everywhere. And it's just like this really cute little thing of she had little jobs that she did on Camino as well, but this is her day job that she's doing. She get her lunchbox ready and she punches in and she punches out, and then she scratches little lines on the wall. And Megan, you had mentioned that that was something that came from her brothers as well, right?
Yeah. Wrecker did that in season 1 when they still lived on Camino. So I thought that was a fun little kind of callback to her brothers and being similar to, being a clone.
Yeah.
To see time pass through this episode was handled well.
Super well done.
Yeah, it was the scratches on the wall to mark the days. I was trying to stop and count and see how long she's been there, but I'm guessing it's been over
a few months.
Yeah, it's been over.
I think it said
3 months.
I think from what I counted, it was roughly 150 rotations. like 150 days, roughly.
Okay.
From like when we see her at the beginning with the scratches on the wall to
because
the moment
that was
where we
like
see her
5.
with the ponytail.
So in the first instance, there was about 5 sets of those scratches on there. So that I would imagine she's already been there for close to a month. And then after that, it grew significantly. Her hair's grown out. But, you know,
she's a little bit taller.
Exactly. And the monotony of her tasks, you know, like the sort of Groundhog Day syndrome that you go through the cycle, you know, it just starts
the water
jumping
dripping
around. The
right?
water but the way she's
blood.
moving through the facility, the task that she goes, where she has to stop, the way she cross paths with Crosshair every so often, right?
That was going to be the moment I brought up, was that in the first episode she passes Crosshair and it's like, oh my God, or the very beginning I should say, and she's like worried about him. And then as the episode goes on, she doesn't even acknowledge that he's walking by.
The one thing that's great to see, though, is through all this time that's passed, her optimism is still top. Like, she's so optimistic. She's, you know, for a lot of people, they would have lost hope. Look at Crosshair. In contrast to the way Omega is, she's still optimistic about them getting out. And, you know, he's just like, you know, I'm done. You know, I'm out, right? So...
I also want to bring up, just because you brought up that aspect of Crosshair's character in this episode, you know, we are introduced to Batcha, who was so funny.
Nate, please tell everyone.
Yeah, okay, it's a little embarrassing, but like it took me forever to sort of figure out while we were watching these screeners. I'm like, I literally turned to Megan. I don't know what episode we were on, but I was like, Batcher, because the Bad Batch. And I was like, I don't know why it didn't click for me right away that's why she named her Batcher. But Batcher voiced by D. Bradley Baker, which is
amazing.
Awesome. So cool. But one of the things that I love about some of the mirroring, especially in episode 1, is the element, or I guess throughout these 3 episodes, but is the element of how Batcher is very much Crosshair, right? So at the beginning of Omega and Batcher's relationship, Batcher's biting at her and you know, not really wanting her to help her, and Crosshair is very much in the same way. He's saying things that he really doesn't mean, and I just love how we sort of get Omega winning them both over by the end, and I love that sort of parallel between those two. Again, very unlikely sort of characters to sort of parallel, but no, I thought that was really, really well done from a writing standpoint. And then from a cinematography standpoint, with that sequence of her for I think the first time that she sees Crosshair, and I did mention this in a spoiler-free capacity in our spoiler-free review, but I do want to just kind of talk about it a little bit here when Crosshair says, "You trust too easily," and Omega responds with, "Maybe you don't trust enough." And as soon as she says that, we get that close-up on Crosshair's hand shaking, and it's such a mature sort of way to show an aspect of how he's struggling, and it's such a fantastic way through, you know, showing us rather than straight up just telling us, and it lets us sort of draw our own conclusions as to sort of where he's at. And I love that. I love when movies or shows can sort of just show you a shot, and it can be super quiet, and they linger on it, and they stay on it, and we get that beautiful score from Kevin, Sean, and Deanna Kiner. One of them, I'm not sure, maybe all 3 of them did that score, I don't know. But I just love that moment. I think it might be my favorite moment of these 3 episodes so far.
And that's the maturity in this show, that's showing moments and not over-explaining them or having... exposition within an episode. There's not description of, oh, Crosshair, your hand is hurting. No, it's just showing that his hand is shaky, and
she recognizes it too.
Yeah, they show her watching him and getting concerned, and then, you know, continuing to try to give him hope and optimism and feeling compassion towards that. And that's one of my favorite qualities of Omega, is her compassion for others. She doesn't, aside from like actual evil black and white people, she doesn't have any ill will towards anyone.
Yeah.
Like she does trust too easily.
She trusts everyone unless they give her a flat out reason not to. So
all right, Batches, was there anything else that you wanted to call out from this episode 1 before we move on to episode 2? Any even little details, little tiny things or big things, anything else that you guys wanted to mention?
Yeah, actually, in episode 1, Hemlock brings Nalase to what he calls the vault. And this is this is going to be our major story plot point that goes through the entire series. And I'm just very excited to find out what's in that vault. I know within these 3 episodes we do kind of understand what it is. We don't know exactly what.
Yeah, we'll get to that. To that. Yeah, no, for sure. It's kind of the thing that I might want to maybe end this watch club on is digging into
the vault
and some words around it. But I do want to just mention now, let's say, because you did, you commented when we were watching, you were just like, she sounds so sad and depressed, and like she's normally, like, Kaminoans sound like kind of the same and very drony and very, but no, she's talking slower than ever, and I think that might be that's just such a cool sort of element that they've given us, because again, we don't normally see emotion from these characters, and we're getting fear, and we're getting depression and sort of just sadness from her, and it's fantastic. Let's get into episode 2, Paths Unknown, directed by Nate Villanueva. Love Nate. Our second episode follows our Bad Batch as they finish up a mercenary mission involving the Deveronian and Pike syndicates, with Hunter and Wrecker bringing in a captured Pike enemy in return for some intel on Hemlock's location. However, they receive coordinates to a long-retired laboratory on a planet overrun by forestation. They also happen upon 3 young teenage clones, Deke, Stack, and Mox. And while Stack and Mox are considering stealing their ship, ultimately they remember that a good soldier never leaves anyone behind, and in the end they save Hunter, Wrecker, and Deke from the Slither Vine. It's kind of like a Sarlacc monster, and in return Hunter and Wrecker deliver them safe passage to Pabu. I love how this episode starts off as if we just wrapped up a 2-episode arc that we never saw. But, you know, the Bad Batch, they just sort of fit right in, and I think it was such a great way to sort of subvert your expectations of not seeing them right away, because you kind of just imagine the first frame of this episode is going to be our Bad Batch buddies, but I think it was just one of those, like, oh, of course they'd be the ones behind, you know, capturing these guys for the this crime syndicate, and so I thought that was great. And I also think Issa Durand, voiced by Angelica Houston, by the way.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
Pretty awesome. Giving a really Baldur's Gate 3 vibes, or Baldur's Gate vibes, I guess, like the devil, you know, the Deveronian devil horns she sort of had. Like, she looked awesome. Kudos to Angelica Houston for killing it.
Yeah, I thought this was great to just kind of kick off the intro of Hunter and Wrecker as they're doing their thing. They're, you know, chasing down leads and following up on bounties that will hopefully lead them to more answers. And, you know, that was what the whole point was they were there to trade up a Pike and, I guess, give back that dude,
the cut off horn.
Yeah. Because that was a value
nice
to, like,
reference.
Personal value. And I think it was, and then for that was an exchange of information. It wasn't about money. It was just about they want to find Omega. So this is what they've been up to. This is what they've been doing. They've been going around the galaxy, doing things like this to get as much information as they can that will hopefully lead them and point them in the right direction. So I like that that's sort of how we're introduced to them, or reintroduced to them in this episode. Is, you know, they're doing their thing, the thing that
they're
we
doing
know
what they
that
have
they're
to.
doing. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I was saying before, it's crazy to see them so fractured at the beginning of this season. The group of the Bad Batch was originally 4 plus Echo, and then Omega was introduced. And now they're just 2, and it's so crazy to see them walk in. And this is the introduction of the Bad Batch this season. So It's like, really, we're starting off on such heavy notes of where the batches are at and what they have to do to get back together. And that requires them putting their toe in probably the most dangerous situations they possibly could, just so they can get back together.
Yeah. I think this episode was a lot of fun. I want to highlight the baby bobas, as I call them, and, you know, it's just great that we've got a bunch of sort of Daniel Logan, characters running around. Not all of them Daniel Logan, though, right? So, like, Daniel Logan voices Mox, who's the leader, who I thought was going to be the one that sort of sticks with them because, you'd think like, oh, Daniel Logan is going to be sort of the main guy, but he's actually one of the ones that tries to betray them. But Julian Dennison, so if you don't know, Hunt for the Wilder People or Deadpool 2, really fantastic New Zealand actor, is the voice behind the other two young clones, Deke and Stack. So that was fantastic seeing them, and I think having all of them ultimately defeating a giant Sarlacc pit was probably the perfect sort of amount of subtle callback that makes my Star Wars geek heart so happy.
Yeah, but it brings back this idea of loyalty and family. And I think that was what was really key from this, is that, as you pointed out, Meg, the batches are sort of fractured, and so too are these kids, and this situation has forced them to kind of come together and recognize their opportunities. And I think that's what was really great about this episode, is that they can still have an impact even though they are just two, and they can set a precedence, for being loyal, for being courageous. I think there's one line where I think it's Deke who says, like, you're looking for one of your people, like one of your teammates, at least you're loyal. Yeah, I like this episode because even though it felt like a bit of a filler, it was a bit of a catch up for us to understand where Hunter and Wrecker are in their journey to find Omega, and sort of struggling too, right? Like, I just love the shot where Hunter's like trying to make sense of this technology, like an old guy, and he's like, Jesus, like, what is going on? And then you see Tech's goggles, and then he looks over, and then he sees like Lula, and he's like, he's missing the part of his team that would be able to facilitate and do these things better than he can. Like, it's just a reminder for him that, what he's fighting for.
I think my favorite moment watching this episode actually had nothing to do with what I was seeing on screen, but rather the experience I had with who I was watching it with, which it was actually Megan. We watched it together, and my favorite thing is just the Slithervines show up, and all I hear is, ew, 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 excuse me? Like, it stands up when it does sort of like the alien critter run around, and she's just like,
it's
excuse
true. Oh, the
me?
little like baby ones that popped out. Ugh. It was so
fantastic.
Weird.
That whole sequence, though, was fantastic. It was like a horror movie.
Yeah.
We talked about it at the top of the first episode, how it was like a monster movie-esque, like, they're crashing in, Skull Island sort of mentality, right? But, here it's like, they're roaming through a dead ship, and or a dead base, and there's just these vines that are slithering around, and then these little baby ones start launching, and the best is when like Hunter turns, and then one of the baby ones just come lunging at it, and you just see like the teeth open.
Yeah, it's a face hugger at that point.
And it's just, again, it was like, yes, very horror movie-esque, very reminiscent of like Aliens, and it's really great that they have fun as a team, the team behind these episodes, to kind of shift tone like that. They're like, okay, let's get into horror mode here, and let's get people feeling uncomfortable. It really does pay off.
It worked.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Was there anything else about this episode 2 that you wanted to highlight before we get into our third and final episode for this Watch Club?
Gotta shout out Gronky to the to the rescue. He come Gonky.
Well,
I call him Gronky.
So if you go back, if our Watch Club listeners of this series will know that I always called him Gronky, and and Joints would get so upset every single time. He's like, "It's Gonky. It's Gonky. Just say it right. It's Gonky." And I'd be like, "It's Gronky." But you're right. It is. It is. Oh, I almost said it again.
We now call Nate Gronky when he's like
I'm
angry and like tired and like in a mood. Oh,
Justin
someone's
has
Gronky.
to pick me up, and he's got to carry me whenever
Upside
I don't feel
down
like walking.
also.
Yeah.
Upside down.
No, good shout out for sure. Okay, let's get into episode 3. I think the one that I am most excited to dive into and chat about, and this is called Shadows of Tantiss, directed by Stuart Lee. Our third episode of season 3 takes us back to Tantiss as we peel back the layers and go deeper into the mystery surrounding Hemlock's plan. Nala Se urges Omega to escape as Tantiss has a very important visitor arriving to check up on something called Project Necromancer. her. Omega improvises a plan with Crosshair to escape, which is nice, but it happens to be the same night that the Emperor is there. Luckily, they managed to escape through the Lurka kennels and then off-planet using Plan 72. And they even managed to accidentally adopt a new friend. Unfortunately for Nalase, however, her protection of Omega is noticed by Hemlock, and she's locked away for questioning. Just as Omega and Crosshair are about to be shot down, Emery discovers and explains to Hemlock that Omega's samples supported a positive M count transfer with no degradation. He immediately calls off his troops, and Crosshair and Omega jump to light speed. A minor setback, as Hemlock now has the full resources of the Empire at his disposal. And I love that he literally just says it. He's like, well, it doesn't matter. I've got the full resources of the Empire at my disposal. So obviously, I want to talk about Project Necromancer. I want to talk about the Vault. But before we do, let's just talk about the arrival of the Emperor in this episode. I love, again, when we're talking about sort of the callbacks, I always love a good audio callback, a good music callback. And so hearing what the Kiners did to match John Williams' The Emperor theme was phenomenal. The choir in the background coming through. It just sets such a phenomenal presence for this larger-than-life villain. And when you hear that music, it's like, oh, man, everyone in the room is intimidated right now.
I literally wrote out, "He who must not be named."
Yes. Yeah, very much so. Absolutely.
Yeah, it felt very classic to his arrival to the Death Star in Return of the Jedi. The highlight for me, outside of obviously the little hints of what we're going to talk about later, is seeing Crosshair and Omega together. That was like the highlight of this episode. I think it was Meg that you were saying, like they've always kind of been at odds ends. Like they've always been kind of like, kind of snippy at each other. Even still, as much as Crosshair tries to resist Omega's optimism, he kind of gets swelled up in it and goes with it. And it actually presents itself as a really great situation for them to get out. And the whole switcheroo situation of they execute Plan 72, which is basically to get everyone out of their ship and then they can go in and take their ship. And I thought it was so smart. I was like, that's awesome. And just to see how, like she goes up the elevator to like go in and go to the cockpit. She puts it in autopilot, comes back down while he's running to the elevator to go back up, and she's just shooting. It's like you can totally see she's not a kid anymore. She's like she's in it, right? She's a fighter, right? So I loved it. I
mean, not only is she like kicking mouse droids in the face,
so funny.
I love that. Yeah.
But the fact that she is such a badass, and I think we said this in season 2 as well, around the opener there, where she is like she's got all the skills from her Bad Batch brothers, but I love that, she's laying down cover fire in this moment. Like she's jumping out in front of fire, action, like the action. And the fact that Crosshair is like totally okay with it, just again, he's like, no, she's got this. She's got a, trial by fire. Like she's going to be fine. She knows what she's, maybe he sort of imagines what she's capable of, but I just think like she takes a knee and just starts blasting away.
Dude,
is so cool. But I think the other aspect about it that I love is she still takes time to say, to tell Batcher like stay close. Like she's still Omega at the end of it all. Like as much as she's like a badass, she's like, but also save the dog.
Yeah, of course. And that was what was so clutch about it too, is that again she's still taking time to allow for her empathy and compassion. To Crosshair, like he said, he would leave without her if there was an opportunity, right? Maybe he's just saying that to be hurtful, but
I think he
at
was.
The end of the day, yeah, for sure. But again, I could see someone like Crosshair making a sacrifice. If it meant leaving Batcher there, he would have done that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think he would have left Batcher. I don't think he would have left Omega though.
For sure, I get that, but like he might have. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think he also in this moment realizes that she's not just a kid. She can fully hold her own. Even when he gets out of the cell, he throws her a blaster. Right? It's like, well, who else is going to be my cover fire? And then it's just like when he's like, "Oh, the Emperor's here. The Emperor is here."
Oh, yeah.
Like,
so good.
Like, could you
Maybe
pick an even worse day? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So it was pretty. Like, there's to see them finally have their relationship kind of flourish a little bit more and kind of take front stage, because I think in season 1, like even from the interactions they had, it was really Like there was a wall there, right? There was a wall there that Crosshair would put up that Omega couldn't necessarily get over, and it seems like now she's kind of torn that wall down, and there's a sense of vulnerability and care, and it's cool. It's cool to see.
Yeah, even when they escape, like the dog kennel thing, when they slide out the end, and Crosshair's like, okay, where's this ship? And Omega's like, I don't know. And he gets a little bit frustrated with her for a second, but then it works out that obviously the Emperor's leaving, and he's like, rather than tearing Omega apart for being a kid and being an idiot, he figures out an answer and goes, okay, no, let's go and follow the flight path. So there's less of that, like you were saying, the accusations. He's not frustrated with Omega. He's just going, okay, well, I guess my partner in crime right now is a kid and she can hold her own, I guess. So we're going to just go with it. And then I also love Batcher's the one who jumps in when Omega's about to get hurt. That, again, is showing her connections are meaningful, and the people and the animals that she saves are grateful for her compassion and her empathy. So it comes back. Karma loves Omega.
Yeah. And I love the little hello she gives the stormtrooper as he's approaching her before he gets taken.
Yeah.
It's so good. So good.
I think to the sentiment of what you were talking about, where Crosshair gets a little frustrated when she doesn't know where the ship is, I think it's really great when she realizes the plan failed. Like they can't get this ship up and running. And she's like, I'm sorry. I thought this would work. And he says, we're not done yet. Right.
Yeah.
And you got us this far.
Yeah.
And I'm like, to me, that was a massive awakening. I was like, look at Crosshair being nice and polite and complimenting her and not being like, oh, you're just a stupid kid. It shows that he is very much changing.
Yeah.
His whole outlook is changing a lot. So.
And he's realizing that he's been wrong this whole time. Like the season 1 and season 2, watching him go through what he went through and knowing that it wasn't the chip, it was his own free will deciding to follow the Empire. He's now come to terms with the fact that that was the dumbest thing he could have done, and he has some making up to do. So it's nice to see this side of Crosshair who's supportive and understanding, and he's also a little wounded, so we're gonna see some tentativeness, but yeah, it's a good direction they're taking Crosshair. I really like it.
Yeah, I think again, the biggest detriment to Crosshair's character is loyalty. He has such an immense amount of it, which is why he looked at his brothers as being disloyal to the Empire, and which is why he remained loyal. Obviously, given the events of what happens in season 2, and we see him start to realize that loyalty doesn't go both ways. He's very loyal to an empire that is not loyal to him, and he starts to recognize what he lost. And I think this whole experience in Tantiss for him has been that awakening of sort of, he even says it in this episode, if I'm not, or maybe in episode 1, actually, he says, just leave me here. This is where I need to be. It's almost as if he thinks that he deserves this punishment, this pain, this torture, if you will. We don't know what the extent is of it, but we know that they're doing experiments on him. So he thinks he deserves everything he did because of what he did, and not to the Empire, but to his brothers. And I think that's sort of why he's remained there for as long as he has. So there's parts that you see that really do show sort of a broken and fractured Crosshair that is trying to rebuild himself.
Kind of shifting gears here a little bit, I want to talk about Dr. Hemlock. We kind of get a little bit behind his sort of true intentions, right? We kind of didn't really know why. Obviously, I'm evil, loyal to the Empire, I'm a bad guy. Sure, that's a good blanket sort of, vague way to describe a character like Hemlock. But we kind of get a little bit more, and that he just wants a promotion. You know what I mean? He wants to be scientific minister for the entirety of the Empire. And I love Ian McDiarmid, like, in due time. Like, also, shout out to Ian McDiarmid for still pulling off Imperative. Like, he just is killing it. But, I think the thing that I'm wondering about with Hemlock's true intention to become scientific minister for the entirety of the Empire, I'm like, at the end of the day, what does that do for him? Like, is that more vacation time? Does he get paid better? Like, what is it? Is it just the satisfaction of pure evil? Like, I really want to know.
It's a title. It's a title.
It's a
and you would
title. Okay, power.
Yeah, and you would. Yeah, it's power. Exactly.
Okay.
Influence.
Yeah, and he would be able to basically dictate how the science would focus on specific elements, right?
Right.
So he's clearly passionate about cloning. So
like, does he get like? Is he just like really into it? He's like, oh, this was a great day we had, honey. Like, comes back from work. He's like, yeah, we got some really great M count stuff going on. Like,
I don't know. There's a backstory. Like, where does he come from? What did the Empire or the clones do to him? Or where? Yeah. It's a backstory that we don't know a lot of.
Sure. I think the other thing that I'm kind of thinking of as you guys are sort of explaining it, it's like, it's a corrupt empire. They're going to condition the people that work for them to think that the goals that the ultimate power wants, what the emperor wants, is what these little minions want, right? So the more and more that he's been working for this corporation, if you will, he kind of just thinks, well, that's the end all be all. Like, that's got to be the thing that I need. I need that power.
His motivation and his intent seems very similar to that of like Orson
Krennic,
from Rogue One, where it was just it was a sense of status and power and
look at me, I'm the most beautiful girl in the room, kind of
exactly
thing, right?
And I think and I think that goes without saying that that's very much what the Empire is. It's filled with a bunch of people that are really self-serving and they want their power and their status. So
interesting.
It makes sense that he's yearning for something like that.
Yeah.
Are we talking about Necromancer or what?
Let's get into it. So, normally at the end of an episode of a Watch Club episode for the Bad Batch, we like to do our prediction segment, What's Gonna Happen Batch, which is one of my more creative ones. But I think because, again, we've seen a little bit into the future. Obviously, we're not going to predict anything that we or theorize on anything that we have, sort of gotten to know. This is sort of the bigger picture here. So I actually want to dive into what is Project Necromancer, and I actually want to actually hear from Megan first, if you have any ideas.
Okay, well, I mean, if we break down what necromancer would be, the act of necromancy is bringing back the dead.
Yeah.
So reanimating a dead body, essentially, is necromancy. And that has a lot of weight to it in the form of cloning and who you could possibly clone that might be dead. I mean, we've seen a couple faces in the trailer. I'm not going to mention anybody just in case you haven't seen it yet. But there are some characters that were shown in that trailer, one specifically who is known to be dead. So that is, I think, where this is going. Leading.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think I definitely had that thought as well. It is interesting, though, because Project Necromancer, according to StarWars.fandom.com, is something we've seen before. We actually have heard the term Project Necromancer. And I remember watching it. Yeah, and Megan, I turned to you and I was like,
I'm shocked.
I was like, we've heard of Necromancer before, but I couldn't piece it together. And you're right, Justin. It is, it's an operation in effect during the time of the New Republic. So this is far into the future. Captain Gilead Paleon spoke of the project in a meeting with the Shadow Council with Commandant Brendol Hux, who's Hux's dad, in the project that he was that they were working on, and they discussed that it's to aim to introduce new leadership to Imperial remnants. So I feel like we kind of have a really good sense of what is going on, where it's going. But the interesting thing, I think what's more interesting to me is not so much that it kind of, we sort of all are tiptoeing around what we actually think it is. I think what's more interesting is that they haven't pulled it off by the time of The Mandalorian. The fact that they're saying it's going to be implemented. I'm like, yo, so Hemlock's like probably not going to get the job done. Like he might not get that promotion after all.
But again, it's the science that's important, right? Like,
right.
I think again,
start somewhere.
And I was pretty direct in my interview with Jennifer and Brad, where I said, like, it feels like everything that's happening on Tantiss is literally pointing to somehow Palpatine returned, right?
Yeah.
And it's giving justification to that. And we've seen elements of cloning reference throughout. Absolutely. The Mandalorian, it was all littered in there. It was episode 4 or 5 in season 2 where we end up at the facility where Grogu was, and we discover these like Snoke-like bodies, and we realize that there's some sort of form of cloning, and that's not based on anything they told us. That's just the fact that we as fans put all of that together. You know, like you said, we were introduced to it in The Mandalorian. That's after the Empire. That's after, you know, the Battle of Endor. But here we're hearing about it again at the beginning of the Empire. It does really showcase how this science has been worked on for many, many years. And I don't even think, like, I think at a certain point they probably get it right, but nobody knows that they actually got it right. You know, so that's the thing. So the one thing I did say in the interview, and I think it's totally true, is that everything that we're hinting at here, and that we know that this is about cloning people that are dead. And you can even connect it back to Obi-Wan when they were on the Inquisitor's ship and they found all those Jedis that were sort of like in that ember, like that Jurassic Park ember. And then they were like frozen. So like they had kept all of those bodies of Jedis that they could literally pull from and bring back to life. So you have to wonder, how does that come into play? Even the fact that we saw it, like they were keeping it as like their treasure, if you will, right? Like their bounties, if you will. But in the grand scheme of things, it's probably going to feed into this Project Necromancer at some point, right? So
it's all for a greater purpose. Yeah,
and it's all been there. It's all great that they're kind of like seed planting all of these little elements to show you, like it's been there. There was no focus on it. Now there is. Like I was saying in the interview, though, they're not going to be able to give us everything. I think this is as much as what this series is really going to give us is probably a confirmation that they are working on, you know, cloning back the dead, and that is going to obviously be of interest to the Emperor in case of like as a safeguard. But I think the most important thing about what I hope we get away from this season is what's so integral about Omega, and why is it her DNA that is the one that seems to be the one that makes this all work. You know, there's no degradation of M count. You know, that's a key element that they keep saying. Every time they're cloning, they're losing the M count. And we all know what the M count is, right? It's the metachlorians, it's the force sensitivity in them. So what is it about Omega's blood that is so different that the M counted, there's no degradation. There's it's flawless. It's a perfect clone from M count to M count. That to me is the real question from this series, other than Project Necromancer, because we know it exists in the shadows, right?
But she doesn't want to be an experiment in a tube.
No.
I think it's her, what we've been talking about. It's her optimism. It's her hope that keeps that M count pure, and maybe that has something to do with her blood and sort of.
Is she force sensitive though?
Absolutely.
Is she a clone of a Jedi?
100%.
Right? Like, because that's like, and the thing is,
that's interesting,
right? Like,
is she Obi-Wan's clone? Right? Did they get like a piece of hair off of him when he visited the facility, and that's where? No, but she isn't. She's absolutely a clone of because she's a Bad Batch clone.
But she's a girl.
Yeah, that's true. Girls are different.
Here's the thing, and this is just hypothesizing. This is like shooting shit. So whatever. Mm-hmm. They took Django, they cloned him. And they just kept cloning him. When they probably decided to change the sex of the clone, could that have affected the M count? Could that have suddenly pushed this DNA into the sense of force sensitivity DNA?
Interesting.
Like, did they just birth a Jedi?
Well, and I wonder though, if in their experimentation of trying to get a female clone, she's the only blonde one. Because even the other female clones that they've been successful with, like Emery, and there's multiple that walk around Tantiss, they all have brown hair.
Interesting.
So I wonder if when they were doing experimentation, maybe Omega's the first one, and they let her age regular compared to everybody else.
Where they had the age up, yeah.
Did they do like an egg and a sperm kind of deal with I don't know, like maybe they were like, oh, the only way to get a female is if we actually do proper birth sequencing or something.
Right. That's what I'm saying though, right? As soon as because that in itself isn't a scientific act of cloning, that's just breeding.
Yeah.
Did that unlock that M count and that force sensitivity that she just never spoke about. Like she didn't want anyone to know about. Nala Se didn't want anyone to know. She needs to fess up. I want to hear some responses from her immediately about what's going on with Omega, because that, to me, that is what this series really needs to answer above all else, is what is the deal with Omega, because she's clearly more than just a direct clone of Boba Fett and Jango. Like there's something up with her. We need to know. That's the answer that I'm looking forward to hopefully getting this season.
It's all really interesting. It makes the last two things that I wanted to mention not as amazing, but I do want to just mention, because Justin, you'd pointed out the Jedi held in amber in Obi-Wan. Really interesting, because again, that does line up with the timeline. And Nala Se in episode 1, Omega says, like, well, are they testing the clones? And it was a bit confusing, because they do show clones' faces coming up on the monitors behind Nala Se, but she says, not the clones. And so it's like, oh, then who else could it be, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They're cross-referencing their blood of the subjects that they have to the clones to see who will generate a non-degraded M count.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what was cool. Even again, going back to the reference of how time is depicted, how time is showed through those little vials moving through. Like in episode 3, it's really interesting how it's ticking through, and it's sort of the driver of tension. Like, oh, they're close. They're close to getting her DNA and finding out that she's the key, because you knew she's going to be the key, right?
Yeah.
Like you knew, like, obviously the way that Nala Se is hiding everything and whatnot, she's obviously going to be the one that fixes it, right? So
I think the last thing that I wanted to mention, then if you guys have anything else you want to drop before we end here, is I watching literally just before we started recording, I watched the third episode one more time, and if you look at the containment unit that the Emperor and Hemlock are standing in front of, it is identical to the ones that the Snoke clones are in on Exegol. So I literally brought up the picture on my phone, and I looked at it, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's the exact same unit. Now, I'm not to say that is absolutely Snoke in there or what have you, but the fact that it's like, yeah, that's the technology that we get all the way into Exegol, into the Rise of Skywalker. I just think that's so cool that they're paying attention to, obviously, to those details. They're masters at doing this sort of stuff. But again, it's so rewarding as a fan to get, the Dave Filoni and Brad Rao and Jennifer Corbett sort of team up to come in and sort of say, with everyone being upset about how, somehow Palpatine returned, and then it's the hold my beer, and they manage to just, take it away and give us a wonderful explanation that hopefully won't make us as mad at that line in the future.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what? It's like what Dave Filoni did with Clone Wars for the first trilogy. I should say the prequel trilogy. Mm-hmm. He saved the prequel trilogy by giving us the Clone Wars animated series. Yeah. He's saving
the
sequel trilogy
yeah.
with the Bad Batch and showing us things that are explaining. And that's a really fun part of the animation, and why I think people, now that we've got it in a little bit more of an adult, vision, we can see things in a more mature setting. I would hope this brings more people to the animated side of Star Wars.
Yeah, I think the fandom for this series alone has been huge, right? I think it's when you start looking at the other stuff that's already come before, where you could probably teeter between being the right amount of childish and the right amount of mature. There's just a mixed balance. The tonal shift isn't always there, but here it feels like it is full-fledged, mature. It's definitely meant to be a little bit more lighthearted in terms of its familial, elements. But I think, again, it takes itself seriously, and rightfully so, because as you've been saying, it's about using the medium as a mode of storytelling and not just as a genre for a specific audience. And I think that that's so crucial to how Lucasfilm has always looked at animation, right? Like, they've looked at the audience, but they've understood the importance that it has to the larger story.
Anything else before we wrap? batches. You guys were pretty satisfied with this conversation. I know I am. I'm excited to talk about the next batch of episodes. But that is it for this week's Watch Club for Star Wars: The Bad Batch Season 3. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts or your predictions on the shows we cover in this Watch Club, well, you don't have to have an injured lurk-a-hound while, running around with a super high M count. Instead, Justin, can you let the beautiful batches know how they can reach us by holo message?
Well, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at GeekcentricYT, or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
We also have opened up a channel in our Discord for this show, for this Watch Club. You can chat with us about Bad Batch Season 3. We also opened up one recently for Avatar, The Last Airbender, and you can check that out just in our Discord by using the link in our description. Keep in mind, we also have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in movies, TV shows, including our recent spoiler-free reviews for both this series as well as Avatar, The Last Airbender, which you can definitely check out. We also have some great interviews, like our most recent interview with Daniel Day Kim and Paul Sun-Hyung Lee from Avatar: The Last Airbender. You can check that out over at youtube.com/geekcentric. But we also got some pretty good Bad Batch stuff there as well. We interviewed Brad Rao, who is the supervising director and executive producer on the show, as well as executive producer and head writer Jennifer Corbett. Justin sat down with them yet again this season to chat with them. And then Megan and I, or should I say myself and Megan, had the opportunity to talk to Michelle Ang, the voice of Omega, which was awesome. We even asked her what her clone nickname would be. She did not disappoint. So definitely go check out those interviews. Again, subscribe, leave a review. It helps so much. And we're going to have more Watch Club coming real soon. We have to wait until episode 7 to release our next episode, but it will cover episodes 4 to 7. So chat with us in the Discord until then about those episodes. And then when episode 8 drops, we'll be back to our weekly format with Joints joining us yet again. Megan, Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this Watch Club. And as we love to say in our Bad Batch Watch Club,
Good soldiers follow orders.